It's fine to sit here and pontificate about, well, we all got to get off fossil fuels and we've got to do it just as soon as we possibly can in every darn one of them. You're sitting at tables that are made with fossil fuels. We're sitting in a room heated with fossil fuels. We're speaking in a microphone that's made from fossil fuels. We drove here, or got here in some way, with a vehicle that's run by fossil fuels. So it's time to get a little realistic here.
And I believe that any decision to permit fracking will be based on political considerations. So you can talk about all the technical matters and the legal matters, the economic matters, until the cows come home. The bottom line is, there is one person and only one person who's going to make this decision, and that's Governor Andrew Cuomo. And there is absolutely no reason to believe that Andrew Cuomo doesn't want to permit fracking in New York State. I think he absolutely wants to do it, and I believe he hasn't been able to do it. And again, that's because of citizen pressure.
Natural gas consumption. Interesting, isn't it? This is from 2005 to 2011. It's going up. It's not going down. It's going up. You're using more gas than ever. And you know what else? Up to 90% of that comes from fracked wells. You are using more products from fracturing than anybody. Anybody. This is the biggest city in the country, the biggest consumer of natural gas. You're using more of it all the time, and most of it's from fracked wells.
In New York, just this past year, 2 court decisions upheld local zoning provisions that had banned oil and gas operations within municipal borders. As of last month, the number of local communities in New York that had had enacted local laws or established moratoria of development was up to 135.
We've raised a boatload of issues and raised a considerable number of questions in filing close to 700 pages of comments from our environmental group and our colleagues and our technical experts. These questions are still unanswered and the concerns are still unaddressed. Now, you don't see anything happening immediately because there are some significant issues raised and some unanswered questions that still aren't resolved. Many people have said there needs to be an independent health assessment. From what we read in the papers, the Cuomo administration is thinking about doing just that.
So basically, until a supplemental generic environmental impact statement is adopted in final form, no hydrofracking of shale gas wells in New York State. Now that has never happened in the history of extraction mining. You go to all the other states you've been hearing about, Pennsylvania, they're like, bring it on, we're ready, go hog wild. That didn't happen in New York. And we're just trying to extend that moratorium until all of the fundamental concerns that have been raised are fully resolved. I believe fracking is the most profound environmental matter in recent New York State history, and that's how come I've worked on it every single day for the last 3 years. There are literally trillions of dollars at stake. That's why a discussion of the politics of this matter is essential.
Take a look at what's happened in Dimmitt, Pennsylvania, where families have had to abandon their water supplies because of methane contamination that just so happened to occur after companies started drilling in their communities, and I think you'd find another response.
The picture on the left is a picture from Dimmitt, Pennsylvania. You heard Dimmitt mentioned today. You heard that it was industrialized, that it's heavy in industry, that it's been ruined. Take a look at that picture. There's a pipeline running right through that picture, and I don't think any of you can figure out where it is. Don't rely upon what you've heard. See it for yourself, because that's the way you'll get the truth. This well produced over $1 million of revenue for the Elk Lake School District, I think it was last year, continues to produce revenue, has allowed them to not raise taxes and to also improve their school facilities. That's critical, because rural America, rural New York, rural Pennsylvania is otherwise in deep trouble. Rural New York is losing population. School enrollments are plummeting like a rock. The construction industry is dead. And farming, as much as I love farming, and my son and my brother live on the farm that I grew up on, as much as I love it, it's nearly dead too.
You know, so there are all these laws. The bottom line is they're not enforced. Okay, so this Clean Air Act, Clean Water Act, Safe Drinking Water Act, Resource Conservation Recovery Act. I was hired 36 years ago to basically watch the implementation of the regulations required by these laws. I'll go to my grave and they'll never come out. There's just no enforcement.
Now this is another picture from Dimick. I love talking about Dimick. I love doing it because Dimick, of course, is the watchword of the anti-gas movement. This is the name they love to repeat. And they love to repeat it because there were 11 litigants there who challenged a problem that existed there. And I'm not going to deny there was a bit of a problem with methane migration. They decided, rather than to take the solution that was offered to them, as several did, they decided to sue. And so it became a cause célèbre. And they essentially helped give Dimick a very bad name. However, there's now an organization that you probably haven't heard of, but maybe you want to check it out on the web, called Dimick Proud. That's the people of Dimick. That's the 6,000 people that turned out at the Cabot picnic this year because they like what Cabot Oil and Gas is doing for that community. That's the reality. Not the 10 or 11 people that are suing, and most of them have now given it up after the EPA came in and found that there was no contamination.
So this is an area called Allegheny, New York, and it is immediately west of Corning, New York, in the southern tier. So this is the area west of Binghamton. And as you can see, this is the area where there has been a great deal of oil and gas drilling in decades gone by. So New York State, I believe, was the site of the first gas well established in 1821. So in those days, you would literally drill down and you'd hit a pocket of pressurized gas. The gas would come up out of the well, and then after a few years, there would be no more gas. You plug the well or not plug the well, as the case may be. Here's Dave Ferrugia. He's the only example of before and after monitoring. He's in Jamestown, New York. His water was identified to be polluted by the Chicago County Health Department and indicated that it was a well-documented example of drinking water impacted by gas well development. He hasn't been able to drink his water, I think, for 4 years. The DC completely turned their back on him. And their water is so bad that their veterinarians say even your dogs can't drink the water. The bottom line is that more than 22,000 people have signed a coalition letter requiring the revised draft SGICE to be withdrawn. This is the main line of attack. We're just beating on the DC, but most importantly, we're pressuring the governor each and every day, and that's how come he hasn't been able to adopt the final SGICE.
In Bradford and Susquehanna counties, there were 3,600 new jobs over the last couple of years. Those are very tiny counties. One has 50,000 people, the other has 70,000 people. 3,600 new jobs for local people.
So this is when Governor Cuomo was running for election, and we just started bird dogging him in every community where he showed his face. And this is my little town of Ithaca. Then with the data, I got in contact with Ian Urbina of the New York Times. I beg of you, buy their newspapers every day so that people like Ian can keep writing these incredible stories. And Ian basically showed the contamination problems in Pennsylvania were absolutely unbelievable. And Ian's genius is that he can get the government's own data. So this is a PowerPoint presentation that was made to US EPA headquarters by a woman named Amy Birkdale. And this is where they basically revealed that 850,000 people near Pittsburgh couldn't drink water from the Monongahela River in 2008 because it had become contaminated with so much gas drilling brine that passed through the wastewater treatment plants that Eric indicated are designed to treat biological waste. Ian also found out that there is more brine dumped into mine voids than all of the deep well injection in Pennsylvania. So they literally just pour this waste down mine voids and it drains out the bottom.
Then there's the question of air quality impacts, both from drilling operations and from the heavy traffic that would come from fracking. For these reasons, in part, areas within a half a mile of drilling sites in Colorado have experienced VOC, volatile organic compound, pollution at levels 5 times the national health standards. And it isn't just ozone. There are elevated levels of benzene, xylenes, and other organic chemicals that you wouldn't want your children to be breathing. Earlier this year, EPA published a new rule beginning to deal with some of the many concerns associated with fracking-related air pollution. They required the installation of storage tanks to store gas that would otherwise be released into the atmosphere through venting or flaring. They required compliance in this rule by October 2013. What does the industry do? They immediately went into challenge even this modest step to reduce fracking-related air pollution. They filed a petition for review, seeking, among other things, a 2-year delay in that rule.
NRDC, as indicated, submitted extensive 700 pages of comments, but you can see for yourself they actually wrote extensively about a demonstration project alternative. And when you read through this, it means that you can really only allow fracking in those counties along the Pennsylvania border: Broome, Shenango, Chemung, Tioga, and Steuben. And that's when you heard that the governor is thinking about actually permitting limited drilling in that area. So we had another coalition letter. We're opposing that. And so we have Matt Ryan, the mayor of Binghamton, Aaron Heaton, who's here tonight, helping us basically say, if fracking isn't safe everywhere in New York, it's not safe anywhere in New York. And we're trying to make sure that the national environmental groups don't take a face-saving bad deal and screw these communities. And that's how come we asked Eric and other members of the hydraulic fracturing panel to sign a simple pledge.